This is the 2 Goal Lead podcast. My name is Brian Wiebe. Thanks so much for tuning in to this show that we've got for you, episode number 15 already. Can't believe it. By the way, I'm the owner and editor-in-chief of BCHL Network. That is the website that presents this podcast to you. And really excited about the guest who is joining us on the podcast for this episode. He is a forward for the Trail Smoke Eaters. His name is Josh Schenk. Josh, thanks so much for taking the time to join us here on the 2 Goal Lead podcast, presented by BCHL Network.
Yeah, thanks for having me on here.
So how do you feel, big news from the BCHL, how do you feel about the league becoming independent?
I think it's a good step forward for a league. I think it will help us make it a better league and more competitive for the NCAA as well.
Now, I have a question about you personally. Your elite prospects profile shows your nationality as Canadian/Swiss. What's the story behind that?
Well, I'm originally from Switzerland. So I was born in Canada, but my parents are both from Switzerland, and I grew up there, lived there for 5 years, and all my family lives there. So yeah, we moved to Canada when I was 5 years old.
Do you remember anything about Switzerland?
Yeah, I go back there like once every few summers, and talk to my grandma a bunch and my other family members. So yeah, it's still a good place for me.
So when it comes to your season in 22-23, you saw a pretty big increase in points from your first season to this past season. What do you attribute that improvement to?
I think just our support staff around the Trail Smoke Eaters, like Tim and all the coaches, just helping me become more confident in my player, and especially my teammates as well, just helping me become more confident in my play, and just like the on ice too, like getting to skate every morning or work out just helps my development as well.
Was there a set of line mates that you had for the most part during the season?
We kind of shuffled around a bit, but at the end, playing with Brady Hunter, a 20-year-old, he kind of helped me find my scoring touch a little bit.
What do you think what strengths do you think that you bring to any line that you're put on?
I think I bring a strong, a power forward who can shoot the puck and win battles down low, isn't afraid to get to the dirty areas.
I know that when someone looks at your points in the playoffs, the points per game was quite a bit higher than it was during the regular season, but I know you had a 4-point game in one game against Penticton. But overall, what went right for you in that series against the Vs? I
think just talking to Tim, he just told me to trust myself and just go out there and play. And I think my line did a good job of forechecking them, and I was able to put in a few. But I think just overall, my line did a good job of like getting in on the forecheck and not letting them skate out of their zone as easily.
Now, despite that 4-game sweep, what did the Smoke Eaters take away from that series against Penticton?
I think we got a good group of guys coming back who were in that series, and I think just we learned that like it's hard to win and that you need to push through it, and it starts early in the year as well, like trying to maybe be in a higher spot before the playoffs, and just knowing that it's really hard to win in the postseason, so we got to be prepared for that.
As a player who's been up against this V's team over the last 2 seasons, in your mind, what is it that makes Penticton, which of course just won the BCHL championship, what makes them so hard to play against?
I think just their speed and skill and tenacity. Like they forecheck really hard. They don't give any D any time, and yeah, obviously they're really skilled.
So for the Smoke Eaters, how do you feel about those who say that the team was better than maybe the record indicated this year?
I totally agree. I mean, like we obviously had a bunch of injuries and stuff, but yeah, in the back half, like we had at one point we had like 7 or 8 healthy forwards, which obviously isn't a recipe for success. But I think in the long run, it showed the guys coming back that like we do know what it like could take the win, and I think we have got a good group.
So Landon Cowper and Luke Cousins are other players from Whitehorse who made appearances in the BCHL this season. Not many, but they were affiliate players. Although they're 2 years younger than you, how well do you know those two?
I know them really well, actually, especially Luke. I train with him every day. So yeah, I know them pretty well.
So what do you think that, I know they've both signed with Western Hockey League teams, but did you talk to them at all about your experience in the BCHL before they looked at affiliating with teams this season?
Not so much beforehand. I kind of talked to them after and just said, like, it's obviously a tough decision for everyone. Like, it's obviously pretty hard to make, but I just told them that like if they were to make the other decision, it would have been the right one as well. And obviously I talked to them about their experience, and they said they loved the BCHL. They just found for themselves and their family the WHL would be the better route. And I totally understand that. But yeah, I just told them that the BC's like as good as it gets for junior A, and if that was their decision, that they should play in the BCHL.
When it comes to talking to younger players like that, is that a role that you embrace in the Smoke Eaters dressing room, to be that type of leader?
Yeah, I try to lead by example, especially, and just tell the younger guys like what I've been through. Obviously, playing at 17, like you learn a bunch of things about the league, and trying to help the younger guys kind of balance school and hockey. Like it's obviously a lot moving away from home, and I moved away from home at 14, so I kind of got thrown into that pretty early. But other guys not so much. So yeah, just trying to help them like get used to the billet life and the life of a junior hockey player.
When you joined the Smoke Eaters prior to last season, and by that I mean 21-22, does that seem like a long time ago now?
Yeah. Looking back on it, I feel like I was just a little kid, and now like it hasn't been that long, but it feels like it's been a long time ago. Yeah.
So getting back to players that are from the Yukon, do you feel that region is maybe an untapped market when it comes to recruiting players? Yeah,
I definitely agree. I think obviously Dylan Cousins led the way, and I think there's a lot of better players coming out of the Yukon now. And just like obviously we all have to leave home at an early age, but I think more and more players are taking that step towards that. I know there's a 2008 born player who could be playing soon in the league, and just talking to him, like he moved away from home as well, and just kind of talking to him, like he could be playing in the BC, which would be awesome to see. Yeah.
Do you think that there's the potential for the Yukon to grow to the point where maybe players like yourself and some of the others that you mentioned don't have to move away?
I think we've tried to step towards that. It's just obviously really hard to compete with down south, like academies and stuff. So yeah, that's something that I've looked considered, but I think it's pretty hard to do considering there's only 35,000 people like that live in Whitehorse. So yeah.
So you played your minor hockey in the Yukon, though. You talked about moving away at 14. That was when you went to Notre Dame school in Saskatchewan. Was that development the reasoning behind making that move?
Yeah, I think it just came to a point where like hockey wasn't like, if I wanted to take the next step, I talked to my parents, and they found that for me, the next step would be moving away and finding further development, because obviously I loved growing up in the Yukon, and what the hockey here did for me was amazing. But I think at that age, you want to join a bigger pond, and instead of being the big fish in the little pond, you want to join a bigger pond. So yeah, I think that's the reasoning for that.
How did you settle on Notre Dame?
There used to be a coach that went to Notre Dame who coached me up here for 1 year. So I went to a camp there the year before I went, and I fell in love with the place right away and told my mom I want to go there. And my parents really like the building or the dorm aspect of it, that I'm always around the school and just the schooling in general. So that kind of sold me on the place. Yeah.
How did you grow up quickly knowing that your parents weren't around all the time?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it made it easier that I was in dorms, like just being around all the guys all the time. And just, when you're that busy all the time with hockey and school and stuff, I guess you don't really have time to really think about it. But that being said, that first year was pretty difficult. So just phoning back home often, and just cherishing like back home. But at the same time, like because you're so busy, it kind of makes it easier to not miss home as much.
How do you feel that the pandemic had an impact on your development?
I'd say obviously I'm happy with like how it came out going to trail and stuff, but obviously that pandemic was hard, not being able to play my grade 11 year. But at the same time, like being able to practice every day and hitting the weight room was big for my development. I know that year I grew a lot, and so I guess it had negative and positives.
So that's a silver lining, was that you got more gym time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. So take me back to 2 years ago when you joined the Smoke Eaters. What was it that attracted you to playing in trail?
I think just the hockey town, obviously, and the history of the team. I mean, you look at the history and it's crazy, and just the fans. Like, I think we have the best fans in BCHL. and just, yeah, the town just loves hockey. Like, you go to a grocery store, you're recognized by younger kids. Like, it's an awesome feeling to have. And just the team as well. Like, obviously the past success, and just the facilities as well. Like, our locker room and dressing room is second to none in the BCHL.
When you're not in trail, like say during the off season, like now, what do you miss about it?
I think just being around the guys, the team, like my teammates. I think when you're around them every day for 8-9 hours and then you go hang out with them after the rink, I think it kind of becomes a brotherhood, and kind of miss that when you're not there.
So as you're entering your third season here in the BCHL this fall, what areas of your game do you think you need to improve on the most?
I'd say my skating right now. I'm trying to become more or better down low in the corners, just protecting pucks and like holding on to pucks more. So being able to set up my teammates more, and I think just getting my shot off quicker as well. I mean, a quicker release.
And during this off season, what are you doing to work on those things?
Well, currently right now we don't have ice in the Yukon, so that's another struggle of living in the Yukon. But me and my dad built myself a nice shooting center, like outside. So I shoot pucks every day, and me and my buddies go rollerblade on the outdoor hockey rink. So I guess it's that right now, and just stick handling in the basement.
What was the message that you got from the Smoke Eaters coaching staff heading into the off season?
Just that obviously this was a lot better production of the year, and just that I should build off that and keep that confidence. I think the biggest thing they tell me is that I can sometimes be too hard on myself. So just learning to maybe relax a little bit and just have fun and let myself play. And then just coming into next year, like being a role model for the younger players.
As a third-year player who saw your point totals increase, the natural progression would be that it would go up again. What type of pressure do you feel going into this upcoming season about that?
I wouldn't say I feel that much pressure. I mean, I'm the first to put the pressure on myself. So I think it kind of comes from myself and just pushing myself to have that pressure. But working with a mental coach, I kind of learned that pressure isn't always a good thing. So I've kind of set that aside and just focused on the inputs, like just on how hard I work and things I do to get those points. So not so much the points. I'm not really too focused in on that.
What sort of interest have you had from NCAA Division I schools to this point?
I've had a few schools reach out, I think, especially towards the end of the year, but yeah, nothing crazy.
Is that something that's on your radar? Is that a goal for yours 12 months from now?
Yeah, that's definitely a goal for the next year, especially just to up that. Yeah.
You've played twice now in the BCHL showcase. You see all those college scouts and coaches and things like that hanging around that event. How big is that for a player like yourself that it doesn't have that commitment to an NCAA school?
Yeah, I think it's pretty big. I mean, obviously going to that showcase, you want to put your best foot forward, but at the same time, you don't want to think about it the whole time and put that pressure on yourself. I think you just got to trust what you do and go out there and play the way you do. And hopefully a school likes what they see.
The best thing that I've ever heard from a player was that a college scout had been there to see one of his teammates and then ended up being impressed with how he played and ended up offering a commitment. Not that they weren't happy with the teammate, but it was something that just was completely unexpected because he had a good game. So it's cool to hear stories like that too.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Like, they're always watching. So, I mean, always put your best foot forward, but can't think about it the whole time. Otherwise you're just going to run yourself into a wall.
Okay. A couple of fun ones to leave off here with. Who's the best player you've ever played with at any level?
Ooh, wow. That's a good question. I got to think about that. Like for a full season or maybe just a tournament or something?
Whichever you prefer.
I think at Notre Dame, I played with a goalie, Austin Elliott. He's the goalie for the Saskatoon Blades, and he's a pretty good goalie, so I'd say that.
All right. So what was it that made him so impactful as the best player you've ever played with?
He was just a force every night in the net. Like, he held us in every game, and the saves that he made, he just looked so calm and collected, and yeah, he carried our team for the most part.
All right. So on the flip side, who's the best player you've ever played against at any level?
I played against Connor Bedard and Bantam, so I have to say him.
Okay. So what did you have to do every time he was on the ice?
Just try not to get made look silly. But yeah, coaches just kind of said, try to contain him the best you can. We ended up beating him, but I think he had a few on us.
All right. Awesome. Hey, Josh, thanks so much for doing this. Really do appreciate it. And hope you have a good off season and a good start to the season next year.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful conversation with Josh Schenk from the Trail Smoke Eaters, and so much news around the BCHL right now. And of course, it is a brave new world as the BCHL is officially independent from Hockey Canada. Lots of news about that, by the way, over at the website at bchlnetwork.ca if you do want to check it out. Plus news about the Merritt Centennials and the new coach and assistant general manager that they've hired as well. We continued our series about graduating players and eligible returnees. There's a story there about the Chilliwack Chiefs. Plus, we've relaunched BCHL Bulletin, which is an almost daily look for you to catch up on all the news from around the BCHL, including alumni, current players, incoming players, that kind of thing. And so do check that out over at bchlnetwork.ca. Thank you so much for listening to this episode number 15. Hard to believe we've already made it here through 15 episodes. Coming up on episode 16, it is a member of the Vernon Vipers. So certainly hope that you will join us for that. By the way, too, you can find this podcast. It's on the website, of course, but you can also get it on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Audible, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Spotify, and Stitcher. Would appreciate if you could like and subscribe. That would be totally awesome. Oh, and if you want to join our team on BCHL Network, well, we are looking for writers, always. There is a button at the website, bchlnetwork.ca, where you can click on Join Our Team. Up pops a form, and you can fill that out. It sends an email direct to yours truly. I will answer you promptly, at least I hope so. And we can chat about you potentially joining the biggest independent website covering the BC Hockey League in the entire world. All right, that'll do it for this episode 15. My name is Brian Wiebe. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you on episode 16.